Welcome back to Copper Star Precision, the channel dedicated to getting you more points at your competitive shooting matches. Today we're continuing on with the May 2023 Course of Fire for NRL22. It's the first match of the season, and it has a lot of pretty classic stages. Case in point, stage number 2 in the booklet, it's called Chutes and Ladders, and it's the classic ladder stage. Let's go over the stage description. No restrictions, and on the start signal you will start at the lowest rung and engage both targets from near to far with one shot and then move up to the next rung. Repeat this until all shots are fired. If you can't safely reach the highest rung on the ladder, you will move down to the next rung, i.e. if you just got done shooting on rung 4 but can't reach rung 5, you'll then move to rung 3. You must move every 2 shots. We have a 50-yard target that is 2 inches and a 3-inch at 75 yards. I'll put the target sizes down here, both in MOA and mils. So relatively generous target sizes, 2 inch at 50 yards, which should be your zero distance. Doesn't seem too difficult. 3 inch at 75, also pretty reasonable target size. Should be relatively easy to hit. Because we are moving so much in this stage, we have basically 5 movements, 2 shots from each position, and you'd be going back and forth between targets. I don't think it's necessarily going to help you to dial on this stage, so practice your holdovers. For example, my dope, 50 yards is obviously my 0, so it's just straight up, and then I have 0.78 mils on my Kestrel for the 75-yard target. So I'm going to bracket in between the 0.5 mil and the 1 mil hash mark in my scope. I'll put a picture of what that represents over here. And the middle of that is 0.75, which is very, very close to my dope. If you have 0.2 mil hash marks on your scope, I would use the 0.8 hash mark or the one right before the 1 mil hash mark on the scope. So great stage to practice your holdovers. And again, the ladder comes up in so many stages. It's a pretty classic barricade to shoot off of. I'll give you my preferred method. There's tons of other methods, but what's really important is you kind of have to know from each rung, depending on your height, kind of what is the most stable position. As far as equipment goes, I always like on the ladder stages using a attached bag. So I have the Gray Ops plate with an Armageddon Gear flat bag on here. You can't have too big of a bag on the barricade. Like, let's say you had some silly, ridiculous large bag like this. Your barrel might be able to get through, but then your scope is looking right at the next rung. So you can't have a bag that's too large. That's why I like these flat, low profile bags. It doesn't have to be on a plate. You're just moving the bag as well as the rifle each time. But having it on the rifle means that's one less thing I have to worry about on the clock. So I always like the flat bag and a pump pillow for rear support and then filling in body positions during different things. So when it comes to the bottom rung, I think the most stable position is going to be prone. So clock goes off, we get into position here. If you have trouble going prone, you might be able to get away with kind of a kneeling position, kind of something like this. I think for me, prone is most stable, but I could get away with this if I wasn't able to go prone for whatever reason. So we find our first target at 50 yards, we engage that target, we find the next target. I'm holding in between the 0.5 and 1 mil hash marks for 0.75 dope and engage that target. As far as parallax is concerned, as long as you're at like a reasonable magnification, something like between 12 and 16 power, you can probably set your parallax to in between the 2 targets and everything should still be in focus. It's only when you have those great distances between targets or if you're at high magnification where parallax becomes an issue. So before the stage, I'll have the rifle set on 0. I'll have my parallax set somewhere between 50 and 75 yards. And I'll be at a magnification of between 12 and 16 power. So first 2 shots from there, no problem. Like I said, I would probably go prone, but do what works for you. Now the next position for me, the next 2 positions are actually best kneeling. And if you don't want to use a pump pillow or don't have one, or someone in your squad is being a jerk and not letting you borrow theirs, the way I would approach the kneeling position here is both knees down, come onto the gun. I'm using my left hand to imagine this is my mirror hand. I'm using this to kind of brace the rifle in the bag to the barricade. So this hand is not driving the rifle, but just keeping it steady on the platform. So, normally the rifle would tip back, but by just putting my hand here and pushing everything together, the rifle into the bag into the rung of the ladder, it's completely stable and I don't have to do anything, right? So what I'm doing here is now I can drive the rifle kind of with my shoulder. You don't really want to drive the rifle with your actual trigger hand. This should really be only used for operating the bolt and pulling the trigger. So I'm actually using my body, positioning my body, finding the target I see the target. Once I'm on target, I can close the bolt and engage, and then second target, engage again. So kneeling here is very stable, and if you need to get more or less height, you just have to vary sort of the width that your legs are apart. So if I need to get lower, my knees will spread out further. If I need to get higher, like on the next rung, you'll see me with knees together like this. I actually prefer using a pump pillow whenever possible and kind of taking a one knee up. I see a lot of people do something like this where their heel is off the ground. This is not very stable. Whenever possible, try and get this leg at kind of a 90-degree angle, feet flat on the floor. And here, I don't even need a pump pillow for this part. I could put a pump pillow in here just to take up all this space. But even without it, I'm using this front knee to brace my shooting arm, so I'm even more stable. More points of contact, generally speaking, is always more stable on the prop. So I would probably take a position like this. I feel most comfortable this way, but do what works for you. And we go to the next rung. Now here, I'm the same way, using that pump pillow. One leg up, just as easily could do two knees on the ground, and you have to probably come a little closer together on your knees in order to get the height, just like that. Now the important part here, what you really want to think about is making sure that your body, at least your upper body, is square to the target. So you shouldn't be off the side, your knees pointed away from the target like this. Your knees should be, and body should be facing towards the target. Square up to the target makes things a lot easier. Even when I have the knee up, my torso and my chest, everything is square to the target. And what I mean by square is that basically between my body and the rifle makes a perpendicular line. So this is flat in this plane, and this is basically exactly perpendicular, so 90 degrees off from my body at the target. Super stable here. From this point on, I drop the pump pillow because the next two positions for me are standing. So standing here. Now, if I just come up and stand very close to the rifle, this is extremely awkward. So you take a step back, and you have to be able to know kind of how far back you need to step so that when you lean over, you're in the rifle, and that's perfect right there. What's important here, what I see a lot of people making mistakes on, is they're bending their knees. So they come up and they're too close, so they kind of bend their knees, and this is extremely unstable using muscle support instead of skeletal support, and it makes the rear very wobbly. You're basically trying to hold a squat. You know, if you've ever done things like wall sits, you know, you're trying to hold that position, which is basically an exercise, and trying to keep the gun stable leads to fatigue. And as you know, you can hold it for a little while, but the longer you stay in this position, the more fatigued you're gonna get. So the key is lock the legs out, skeletal support only. Basically, legs are completely locked out, and I come into the right by leaning over, bending at the waist, find the targets and engage. And of course, the last position, I can reach the fifth one, so if you can't, you're back down here. I can reach this one here. And what I do is make sure that I'm in the right spot. And usually that involves me bringing my legs close together, but still perfectly straight. And basically when I have my legs just about shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit more narrow than shoulder width apart, I have the perfect height to approach the rifle like so and engage the two targets. So if you're coming back down here, again, something kneeling, either both knees or one knee up, maybe using the pump pillows for support, but at the very minimum, using bone on muscle contact, not bone on bone. Don't put your elbow on your knee. Put your elbow on your upper thigh or your quad, or if you need to get lower, you can put your knee on the back of your arm, your tricep. So this here, also very stable. So pretty straightforward stage. Like I said, we encounter the ladder a lot. Just remember, you're going from bottom to top, so you don't get a choice of the rungs. And it's two targets, great opportunity to practice holdovers, because if you're dialing from the 50-yard target from 0 to, let's say, 0.8 mils, and then back down, and then you're gonna waste too much time on the clock. So concentrate on getting stable positions, making the hits, use holdovers to your advantage to save some time. Hope those tips and tricks helped. If they did, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And until I see you next time, score more points.